right, welcome back to Homeschooling with Classic Stories. We're on week 2, The Tale of Squirrel Nutkin. So as you can see, I've taken it out of its box. I've taken the jacket off so that my son is able to touch the book and hold the book if he so chooses. And so let's go ahead and get started. So I've got the jacket off, which means the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the map. Last week, when we did Peter Rabbit, remember we were down here in the corner. We were down here in the corner with Peter Rabbit and, of course, Mr. McGregor's garden. So we were able to go to the compass and take a look and see things like in the southeast, and then moving up, Mr. McGregor's garden is, of course, in the northwest. So we were able to take a look at the compass. This is something you can do if your child is ready for it. If not, some children simply like to trace with their finger, and that's fine as well. This week, we're taking a look at Squirrel Nutkin, and he is all the way up here. So you can talk about being directly north, because it is kind of in the center of the book. You can talk about being slightly northwest, whatever you want to talk about if you're doing this element. If you would like to take the road, have your child simply trace with their finger the road up here. And Squirrel Nutkin is a little bit frustrating on the map because the water that we're going to see him cross is actually this. It's the Derwent water. So we see that Squirrel Nutkin is going to paddle his little raft with his cousins, and he is going to travel up this into a lake that is somewhere up here. So that didn't really make the map, which can be a little bit frustrating, but you know, they couldn't put everything on there, right? All right, let's go ahead and take a look at The Tale of Squirrel Nutkin. Okay, so you see that this is the very next story. It was published in 1903. Before we start in on this story, I did want to make note that different families are going to have different senses of morality about what this story is about. So I'll give you an idea of some different types of morals that you could take from this story. But I will also largely be emphasizing what our family takes as the moral of this story. So in this story, just as a spoiler, if you haven't read it, Squirrel Nutkin has this fantastic tail, and he is not a very nice little squirrel to an owl, and so by the end of this, he is going to be missing a significant chunk of his tail. Some families might find this story rather graphic. It doesn't have graphic pictures to it or anything like that. But if you do have a sensitive child, there are perhaps ways that you can get around this by simply making it seem less terrible that he lost part of his tail. Or you can alter the story if you want. I am not a fan of that. I think that literature should be read as is, but you need to do what's best for your own family. So let's go ahead and give this a try. We'll start with the stuff that isn't terribly morals based. So usually for this start of this story, I like to talk about sort of transportation words. So for example, Squirrel Nutkin, we see him up here in this tree on this branch. How did he get up there? Did he fly? Did he walk? What did he do? And of course, the answer that you're trying to prompt towards is climbing. Maybe have your child talk about something they like to climb, but talking about the verb to climb. And then down here we see some more transportation, and look, he's going to another tree. So we have 2 trees here and different ways to get there. So how is he getting there? And of course, we're talking about flying. So you can talk with your child about flying. What are some things that fly? Have you ever flown? That sort of thing. So, and then of course, moving on to this next page, we see so many squirrels. And they are doing something in particular. So how are they getting to the next place? And of course, the answer is they are rafting, they are sailing, they're taking a boat, any way that you want to talk about this, but their mode of transportation should be the last one of the transportation that you cover. Something that's very easy to do is if your child needs some work on counting, there are a lot of squirrels in these pictures. So if you want to go through and count all the squirrels in each of the pictures, for some counting practice, that is great to do. And you'll notice, like, even in the next picture and throughout, so many squirrels. in order to practice a bit of counting. Okay, so we see in these pictures that what is it that the squirrels bring to the owl on the first day? And you'll notice that days of the week are very important in this story. So what is the first day of the week? Depending on the country and culture that you live in, your first day of the week might be Sunday, it might be Monday, whatever your culture's day of the week first day is. Make sure you emphasize this. So on Sunday they take, or on Monday they take. So this is the first day of the week, whatever day of the week that is in your culture. So they are, make sure you know what the offering is that they take. They take 3 fat mice to him. And you can see that in the picture, that he is taking some mice. Now, this is where we get to the morality part of this story. And every family has different morals. So, in this, the big part of this story is Squirrel Nutkin is doing these little poem songs towards old Mr. Brown, who is the owl, and just generally being unpleasant. So you have some moral choices here and what you think the moral of the story could be. A popular choice is a very like black and white crime and punishment type one of Squirrel Nutkin is being terrible to old Mr. Owl, and so old Mr. Owl punishes him. And so this is getting what you deserve as sort of a moral that you could emphasize within that if that is part of your family's moral structure. Other families really like to take the patience, forbearance, perseverance, I guess, sort of morality. So like emphasizing that even in spite of Squirrel Nutkin being so terrible, old Mr. Brown chooses to forbear and be patient and whatever. And then he sort of, I guess, loses it at the end when he, when we get to the end of the story, he sort of loses it, and that's not good kind of thing. So some families take that sort of moral thing that you should be kind to others, even in spite of how terrible they're being towards you. Our family doesn't do either of those. Our family kind of takes a third option of assertiveness, which is when we read through these. So when we read through these, I have my son get up and make up like a little dance and sing and whatever. But then we also then revert to what should the owl have said? So like you should speak up for yourself upon the first instance of something happening that you don't like. So maybe the owl could have said, Squirrel Nutkin, I don't like that. Please stop. So making sure that he's getting some assertive language. So there's no bad guy in our story. We're not saying that owl is wrong or victim blaming either of the characters. But we are pointing out like, oh, what could he have done differently? He could have said this or this. And of course, Squirrel Nutkin, obviously, we also talk about he should not be taunting the old owl. So anyway, let's take a look at the next page. On the next page, there's more squirrels for counting. You can talk about what it is that they are collecting. So of course, the answer being nuts. So then we have the next morning. So this is day 2. So focusing on, the next morning, day 2. What day of the week is that? So Monday or Tuesday, depending on your culture. Whatever the second day of the week is. We have another moral section where, again, you're going to emphasize your family's moral values. We then, after we read through this part, we then talk about what could the owl have said in this case, now that he's done it a second time. And so what we're essentially talking about is how do you become more and more assertive without turning towards the violence that he does at the end. So let's continue from there. We see that he does kind of assert himself. He shuts the door in his face. But of course, we do talk about that it's better to use your words at the start of a negative interaction. All right. Anyway, so this is kind of the part that my son really likes because playing marbles, which is my son's current favorite thing. The squirrel is playing marbles. This is also a good place if your child doesn't like playing marbles. What's something your child does like to play that they would like to be playing instead of doing something else. So then we see the third day. What's the third day of the week? Same thing, the different moral aspects of it, however your family approaches that. This does continue on. We have a fourth day. So again, fourth day of the week should happen here. Please make sure that you're making note of what the items are that they're offering to old Mr. Brown in order to take his nuts off of his island. So do make sure that you're addressing the different things that they bring him as gifts. If you want to talk about house gifts, that's nice. If that's something that's important to your family. So like the idea of not going to someone's house empty-handed, that can be nice to talk about. So we see Squirrel Nutkin yet again. So he is doing some sort of crafting. So what's a craft that you like? The fifth day happens. We see him behaving badly again. So what's something old Mr. Brown would have said? And then, so we see the squirrels proceeding to fill their sacks with nuts again. So in this one, I usually just talk about what's a game because he's essentially bowling here. So have you ever been bowling, if you want to talk about that, or some other activity or sport that your child enjoys? Behaving badly again, what's something that he could have said to escalate with old Mr. Brown? Mr. Brown could have said to really let Squirrel Nutkin know that his behavior is unacceptable. So practicing some vocabulary there. We have some more squirrels in this picture, great for counting. We also see them offering an offering. It is the sixth day, so we're coming to a close here. More taunting. You see the word impertinent, which is a great word to stop and talk about. What's something that mommy or daddy think is very impertinent? Might be a good one. But this is where we really get to the action of the story. More taunting, and then we have some terrible parts that happen here. So for all of this, I usually just focus sort of on what the action is that's happening. Because this is the highest action part. So we have, he's pinned down. He has lost part of his tail. If at this point you want to talk about different sets of morality, whether this was right or wrong for the owl to do, that is up to you. And of course, we're at the end, so you can talk about how is this particular squirrel different, or simply look at all the squirrels in this picture. Which one is Squirrel Nutkin? How do you know? I will say modern English. You have a word here at the end. We usually say that this one is cluck, 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 like a chicken. It's up to you how you choose to read this word, because of course modern English has changed. And that is it for Squirrel Nutkin. Please take a look at future videos so you can see what sorts of activities we do this week for this particular story. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.